At the end of 2019, I decided to do something that finally changed my life. I bought my first rental property using my 401k. A lot of people will tell you that's a terrible idea, but I'm going to tell you how it turned out for me and how I continue to invest off this one move. One, so I'll explain a little bit of the property. 2019, like I said, I finally decided to go ahead and make that investment. Now, obviously, 401k is an investment as well. But for me, real estate is much more interesting, and I feel like is the future for me. It's not going to work for everybody. 401k may be great for a lot of people. So start looking at properties, and I found a duplex that's upstairs, downstairs. It was really a converted single family. Um, Obviously, 2018 prices were drastically different. This house was listed for $61,900. I think I offered like 55, and the owner came back. I'm not negotiating, so it wasn't a horrible price, even for the condition of the house, because it needed a lot of work, and I knew that. In order to do this down payment, because I had to do a conventional loan opposed to a FHA loan because it's a second property, investment property, I need to put 20% down. So I accessed my 401k, which gave me I believe it was a very low interest repayment, like 5% for, I think, like 4 or 5 years. So it was like an extra to pay it back, which is the good thing. You pay it back instead of just taking the money out and not recouping it. Anyways, I had like 4 years to pay back. It was like $100 or so extra a month out of my check to pay this back. So anyways, back to the property. Um, I bought the property in December of 2019, and I came to realize, even after inspections mean very little. They're going to tell you some things, but you're going to learn a lot more once you buy the property. Come to find out, I really bought it from a slumlord. So from day one, issues started because this property that I bought already had tenants in it. One tenant was Section 8. It'd been there for a couple of years. One tenant was older couple that had been living there for about 10 years. So at closing, the realtor, the closing agent told me, oh, well, yeah, you can collect rent. They didn't pay it this month. Great, good start. It took me a day or two, but I did get a hold of the tenants, and they end up paying the rent. No big deal. But immediately after that, obviously I start collecting rent. The numbers look pretty good on paper. I think at the time, my mortgage, principal, taxes, and insurance came out to about, I think at the time it was like $790. The upstairs unit was written out for $525, and the downstairs unit was like $750, I think. So pretty good margin, but there was a lot of repairs to be done. So with the upstairs being Section 8, they get inspections. So I had to get an inspection on it, and I don't know how this ever passed inspection with the prior owner for Section 8, but it had 36 violations. Some very minor, like loose doorknob maybe, or some crazy stuff like that. But the biggest thing is because it was a second upstairs unit, there's a balcony with stairs. So I needed to get that fixed. That was like a $3,000 cost. So starting out in real estate was already rough. So there's $3,000. I accessed that additional money through credit cards, business credit cards. So we're getting that done. Had to delay Section 8 a few times to find the right contractor to get this done. Then we're about 75% done on it. Section 8 comes out, does the inspection. Even though it was currently being built, under construction, they failed the unit, and I had to reapply for the Section 8. Now, I don't have to rent the Section 8, so I can pick any tenant I want, but the person living there was on Section 8. So I got recertified, and literally that same day, the tenant tells me that they're going to be off Section 8 because they got a better job, which is great, whatever. So their lease is coming up to an end. And so we agree on a new lease. I think I moved the rent up like $25, nothing crazy. And a couple weeks later, I get a phone call from a property management company that for a recommendation for somebody to move into one of their units. And the tenant that just signed the lease like 2 weeks before that is trying to move out. So I'm like, this is weird. Well, I guess because the person started to make double their income, they decided that this unit was not good enough for them. That was a smaller unit. It needed updating because I had just bought it. So whatever. They moved out. I didn't try to collect anything like that. I just kept their deposit, whatever. Moved on from that, which is actually worked out in my favor pretty well because now I get an opportunity to redo this unit. So we went in, and this is my first mistake with contractors. I let somebody charge me way too much. But I think I spent about 700 square foot space, new flooring, new doors between the deck, painting the counters, or redoing the countertops, putting a new, installing everything new in the bathroom except for the tub. I think I ended up putting about $15,000 in this unit. And after that, I took the rent from $525 to $850. Or sorry, $825. So it'll take me a couple years to recoup that, but raising the rent $300 is definitely a value add. So with the downstairs, we did various different things. We've replaced water heater. We've replaced the flooring, replaced both toilets, did drywall work. So all in all, probably another $3,000 or $4,000 in that unit. So with both units, we're probably about $20,000 in. So a couple years later, after a couple years of all right cash flow, because I had a flood, the upstairs unit flooded the downstairs unit. That sucked. Definitely. That's what some of the repairs was with the drywall and stuff like that. But a couple years later, after I did all the repairs, bought it for $61,000. I end up doing a cash out refinancing it, appraised for $115,000. So in 2 years, I added enough value with, market appreciation and the work I put into it. I raised the value over almost $50,000. So refinance that out. I only took what I needed, and that was the $20,000 I put into it, so I could pay back all my prior debt. So it was a perfect, what they call BRRRR investment. I still own it to this day. I have both units renting out at $825, so that's $1,650. I do pay water, which comes out to about $150. So that's about, I think, like $1,400 income. So on a good month with no repairs, this property cash flows about $950, about $300, $400. So pretty happy with that. It continues to add value, I believe, now in 2026 now? Yeah, 2026, I believe it's worth about 160 to 170. So I could do another refinance if I want. I'm not really sure if I want to do that right now, but it's always in the I can do it if I want to, basically. I did pay the 401k back, so that it worked out perfect. I wouldn't suggest, like I said, I wouldn't suggest that for everybody. Make sure you do your research, know what you're doing. But that was basically my story of my first property, from $61,000, $20,000 in repair, refinance it, $115 value, and now 7 years later, it's worth about $160,000. So that's why I love real estate, in literally 6 years, 7 years, the value went up over $100,000. So I know that there is a housing affordability crisis. I'm completely aware of that. I can't control that. I don't control that. But as a real estate investor, I do reap the benefits of that while providing homes for people that don't necessarily want to buy a house or can't afford to buy a house or don't know how to buy a house. I do tell all my tenants, if you need or want the resources to buy a house, I will help you. Most not necessarily interested because they want to rent. I take on the responsibilities of the repairs. They pay the rent. That's the way it works. Now, the people are one of my properties. They are interested in buying the property. I'm not necessarily looking to sell it. But if I do, then I will give them an opportunity to buy. But I would like to know what your guys' first investment was. If you're looking for your first investment, what's stopping you? What's your motivation if you're currently doing it? I would suggest anybody that wants to buy real estate to, first of all, subscribe to the channel. Go to some local meetups. Find a mentor. Educate yourself. Read books. Listen to podcasts. Don't listen to everybody. Do your research. Please do your research and don't listen to everybody. Real estate is renowned for gurus, which I will be talking about in my next video. So if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe.